Under the flickering lights of a nearly empty train station, a tired single dad clutched the last $10 bill in his wallet. To anyone else, it was just paper, but to him, it meant breakfast for his little girl waiting at home. Then, in the middle of the rushing crowd, he saw her, a stranger with rain-soaked hair, trembling hands, and eyes filled with quiet desperation. No one stopped. No one cared. And in that moment, he faced a choice: protect what little he had left, or give everything to someone he didn't even know. What happened next would not only change her life, but rewrite his own future in ways he could never imagine. Daniel Hayes had grown accustomed to stretching a dollar until it frayed at the edges. At 37, he was a single father to 8-year-old Lily, a little girl with curls that seemed to catch sunlight even on gray days. His wife, Claire, had been gone for 3 years now, taken suddenly in a car accident that still haunted Daniel every time he passed the stretch of highway where it happened. He carried the grief like a shadow, always behind him, sometimes heavy enough to press him to his knees. Yet for Lily, he stood tall. He took extra shifts at the warehouse, repaired neighbors' fences for a few spare bills, and counted coins twice before buying groceries. What he couldn't give in money, he tried to make up for in love, though lately, even his laughter felt thin, like paper stretched too tight. It was a rainy Thursday night when the moment that would change everything arrived. The train station buzzed with hurried footsteps and the metallic screech of wheels on tracks. Daniel had finished his shift late and was waiting for the bus home. His wallet held only a single crumpled bill, $10, just enough to buy breakfast for Lily the next morning. He had promised her pancakes with strawberries, a treat to brighten her week after a tough math test. That promise kept him standing despite his exhaustion. Through the crowd, he noticed a woman. She was perhaps in her mid-30s, her hair plastered to her face from the rain, her coat too thin for the weather. She clutched a torn handbag, rifling through it with growing desperation. "Please," she murmured to passers-by, her voice trembling. "I just need enough for a ticket." "I lost my wallet." People streamed around her like water on the stone, eyes averted, lips tight. No one slowed down. Daniel's chest tightened. He told himself to look away. He couldn't afford to spare anything, not tonight. Lily needed that money. He shifted his weight, tried to ignore the woman's pleading eyes. But then she looked up, and in her gaze he saw something that froze him where he stood. The same helplessness he had seen in Claire's eyes the night of the accident, when he had held her hand and prayed for more time. That memory, sharp as glass, tore through him. He walked toward the woman before his mind could argue. "How much is the ticket?" he asked. Her lips trembled. 10. Just 10. She didn't ask for pity. It was a bare fact, as fragile as her shaking hands. Daniel reached into his wallet. The bill was warm from his body, worn from too many exchanges. He hesitated, thinking of Lily's pancakes, of her joy at waking up to strawberries. A lump rose in his throat. But he pressed the $10 into the woman's palm anyway. "Here, get where you need to go." Her eyes filled instantly, a storm breaking. "You don't even know me," she whispered, clutching the bill as though it were a lifeline. Daniel shrugged, trying to soften the weight of what he had given up. "We all need help sometimes." She let out a small, broken laugh that turned into a sob. "You just saved me," she said, her voice catching. And before he could respond, she melted into the crowd, her figure swallowed by the haze of rain and the glow of departure boards. Daniel stood still, his hands empty, his chest strangely light despite the ache. He had nothing left in his wallet, but the heaviness that had clung to him for months seemed to ease just a fraction. He boarded his bus home with no money for breakfast, yet when he opened the door to their small apartment and saw Lily asleep on the couch with her stuffed rabbit, he felt a deep calm. He knelt beside her, brushed a damp curl from her forehead, and whispered, "I'll figure it out, sweetheart. As long as you're safe, I'll figure it out." That night, Daniel went to bed with an empty wallet but a strange warmth in his chest. He couldn't explain it. only that giving had felt more right than holding on. Somewhere out there, a stranger had boarded a train because of his last $10, and he wondered if perhaps, in ways unseen, that act would ripple back to them. For the first time in months, he slept without dreaming of the accident. The days after that rainy night slipped into routine, though Daniel felt their weight more than usual. He had stretched the pantry staples to make oatmeal for Lily's breakfast instead of the promised pancakes, but she never complained. "It's warm, Daddy, that's all that matters," she had said with a smile that pierced him with guilt and pride at the same time. Her resilience made him work harder, taking odd repair jobs around the neighborhood to supplement his warehouse wages. Yet no matter how many hours he worked, the bills stacked up like an avalanche he could never outrun. Still, Daniel's small act of kindness lingered in his mind. Sometimes on the bus to work, he wondered if the stranger ever reached her destination. Did she make it safely? Did the $10 mean as much to her as it had to him? The memory sat like a flicker in his chest, fragile, inexplicable, but real. Weeks later, he received an unexpected phone call. "Mr. Hayes, this is regarding your application for the maintenance position at Blackwood Enterprises. Could you come in for an interview on Thursday?" Daniel blinked at the crackling line, his hands tightening around the receiver. He hadn't even remembered applying there. He had sent out dozens of resumes months ago, and most had disappeared into silence. Blackwood Enterprises was one of the city's most prestigious firms, a place that usually hired Ivy League graduates, not men with calloused hands and night shift fatigue. Still, he agreed. On the morning of the interview, he put on his only suit, one Claire had helped him buy for their wedding 12 years ago. The cuffs were frayed, but Lily smoothed the wrinkles with her small hands and whispered, "You look like a hero." Those words became his armor as he stepped into the towering glass building. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and golden light, intimidating in its opulence. Daniel felt out of place, his scuffed shoes squeaking against the polished stone. A receptionist guided him to a conference room, and as he entered, his breath caught. Sitting at the head of the long oak table was the woman from the train station. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her tailored suit sharp, her presence commanding. But her eyes, the same ones brimming with desperation that rainy night, met his with recognition. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice steady, though her lips curved with something almost like a secret smile. "I'm Evelyn Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Enterprises." Daniel froze. The world tilted. The woman who had begged for $10 in the rain was one of the wealthiest, most powerful figures in the city. He felt heat rush to his face, shame mixing with disbelief. He must have looked like a fool, a man who had sacrificed his last dollar while she was a millionaire. But Evelyn continued before he could stumble over his thoughts. "That night at the train station, I truly had lost my wallet. I had no way to get home. People walked past me as if I were invisible. And then you came along." Her gaze softened. "You gave me your last $10. I later learned it was all you had left for your daughter. Do you know what that meant to me?" Daniel swallowed hard, words trapped in his throat. "I grew up poor, Mr. Hayes," she said quietly. "My father died when I was young. My mother once stood in a train station, much like I did, begging for help. No one came. She never recovered from that humiliation. So when you gave me that bill, it wasn't just money. It was proof that kindness still exists. You reminded me of something I had nearly forgotten." The air between them grew heavy with unspoken truths. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, wishing he could vanish. "I didn't. I wasn't thinking of anything noble," he murmured. "I just saw someone who needed help." "And that," Evelyn replied gently, "is exactly why it mattered." From that day on, Evelyn did not treat him as a stranger who had once done her a favor. She sought him out, sometimes inviting him to lunch under the guise of discussing the maintenance job. Other times, she brought children's books for Lily, kneeling on the floor of their apartment as she read aloud while Daniel stood in the doorway, uncertain whether to thank her or ask her to leave. Lily, oblivious to the awkwardness, adored her instantly. "She's like a fairy godmother," the little girl whispered one night, clutching a new storybook to her chest. But beneath Evelyn's polished exterior, Daniel began to sense a tenderness scarred by old wounds. She lingered too long when Lily laughed. She watched Daniel with an expression that mingled curiosity and longing, as if she were searching for something she had lost long ago. And when she finally confessed that his act of kindness had not only saved her that night, but reopened a part of her heart she thought had died with her mother, Daniel realized they were bound by something deeper than chance. Daniel had never been one to accept help easily. Pride was the armor he wore in a world that had too often stripped him bare. So when Evelyn began to suggest ways she could lighten the load, introducing him to connections, offering a more stable role within her company, even hinting at supporting Lily's education, his instinct was to retreat. "I can't let you fix my life," he told her one evening after she had dropped Lily home from school. That night at the station, it wasn't about expecting anything back. It was just a choice. Evelyn listened quietly, her expression unreadable. But later, as she was leaving, Lily tugged at Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, "she makes you smile again." "You don't even notice, but I do." The words lodged deep in his heart. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn became a presence they could no longer imagine life without. She cooked with them on weekends, her laughter blending with Lily's giggles as flour dusted the countertops. She joined them at the park, where she let Lily braid her hair, a simple act that softened her sharp executive edges. And sometimes, late at night, Daniel and Evelyn would sit on the porch after Lily was asleep, talking about the holes grief had torn in their lives. Daniel spoke of Claire, how he still reached for her side of the bed. Evelyn spoke of her mother, how the humiliation of being abandoned in a moment of need had shaped her ruthless climb to the top. In those moments, titles and wealth faded. They were just two broken souls holding lanterns for each other in the dark. The turning point came at a charity gala Evelyn hosted. Daniel had been reluctant to attend, insisting he had nothing to wear, but Evelyn had smiled and placed a hand on his arm. "Just come as yourself. That's more than enough." The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and sequins, but Evelyn silenced the crowd with a single story. "A few months ago," she said, her voice carrying across the room, "I stood in a train station with nothing. No money, no hope. Dozens of people passed me by. Only one man stopped. A single father who had only $10 left in his wallet. $10 he had promised his little girl for breakfast. And he gave it to me." The audience stirred, whispers rippling through the room. Evelyn's eyes found Daniel's, steady and unflinching. "That man is here tonight. His kindness reminded me that wealth means nothing if it is not shared. And so, with his blessing, I am establishing the $10 of Hope Foundation, dedicated to supporting single parents and children who need a hand in the dark." Applause thundered through the hall, but Daniel sat frozen, his throat tight. Evelyn extended a hand toward him, and though his legs trembled, he rose. Standing beside her, under the lights, he felt exposed, yet strangely whole. For years, he had defined himself by what he lacked: money, status, the wife he had lost. Now he was seen for what he had given, for the heart he had held onto when everything else was stripped away. Tears blurred his vision as Evelyn pressed Lily's hand into his. "This is what $10 can do," she said softly. "It can plant hope where there was none." In the months that followed, the foundation became more than a name. Families received scholarships, single parents found jobs, and children discovered possibilities beyond hunger and fear. Daniel accepted a position as operations director, managing the very programs born of his small act of sacrifice. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was merely surviving. He was building something lasting, something Claire would have been proud of. And then, quietly, love bloomed. It wasn't a sudden spark but a steady flame, kindled in the everyday. Evelyn helping Lily with homework, Daniel leaving coffee on her desk at the office, evenings when the three of them read bedtime stories together. One night, as they tucked Lily in, she looked up at them with sleepy certainty. "You're both smiling now. That means we're a family, right?" Neither of them had an answer, but their clasped hands spoke what words could not. Daniel often thought back to that rainy night, to the bill crumpled in his palm and the fear of letting go. He realized now it had never been about losing $10. It had been about choosing faith over fear, compassion over scarcity. That choice had not only changed Evelyn's path, it had rewritten his own. As autumn leaves fell, Daniel, Evelyn, and Lily stood together at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of a new community center funded by their foundation. Cameras flashed, children cheered, and Daniel bent to whisper to Lily, "Remember, sweetheart, sometimes the smallest things we give away come back as miracles." Evelyn reached for his hand, and for the first time since Claire's passing, Daniel allowed himself to believe that healing could lead not just to survival, but to joy. Sometimes it isn't wealth, power, or grand gestures that change lives. It's the quiet courage of giving when it hurts most. Daniel's choice to hand over his last $10 proved that compassion is never wasted. It returns in ways far greater than we can imagine. His story reminds us that hope can be born in the smallest acts, and that love often arrives when we least expect it, carrying the power to heal what once felt broken. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little reminder of humanity's goodness. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for more soul-stirring tales of kindness, resilience, and second chances, because sometimes the miracle we're searching for begins with a simple choice to care.